Hello, welcome to Web of Stories. My name is Melinda. I filmed this video a couple of days ago and now I can't find it. So I have to refilm it and I can't find my notes either. So we are just gonna freestyle this video, okay? I am here to talk about a book. It's sort of a review, I guess, but more of it's more of an argument why this book needs to be better known. And the book I am talking about is this beautiful vintage book. Isn't this gorgeous? With my $2 sticker that I paid $2 for 20 years ago. Giants in the Earth by Edvart Rōlvaag. So I read this about 20 years ago. This book came out in 1925. Let's start it here. I read it about 20 years ago. And here's the important thing. Between then and when I reread it recently, I did it as a buddy read with commenter Christina, but then also with Hannah at Savage Books. Between my first reading and the second reading, I reread as an adult the Little House books. That will come into play because this kind of is an interesting tie with Little House on the Prairie. And this book is considered a classic. You can still buy it with a not nearly as cool cover, but also in a trade paperback form. I hate mass market paperbacks. When I reread it, I did not read this copy. I got an ebook copy, but this is what's on my shelf. And it is considered a classic, but it isn't one that you read about a lot. Like, I have actually spoken to quite a number of people who read quite widely and quite a lot, including classics, and they've never heard of this book. It is American literature, but it is American literature in translation. So let me go back and start with Rolvaag himself. Rolvaag was born in northern Norway, in Lofot, somewhere. It's the town that's mentioned in here, Aloften, something like that. And he came to the United States. He was a fisherman. That kind of is relevant to here. And he came to the United States in 1896. He did spend, as a young man, older teenager, young adult, he did spend the bulk of his adult years teaching at St. Olaf College in Minnesota, where he taught Norwegian language and literature. But his first language was Norwegian. He did write this book in Norwegian, and then he translated it with someone named Lincoln Colcord into English. So this is a translation, but it's a translation in part by the author. And this is actually the first two books in a quartet. The first two books are in this book. So the first book is called, my yellow in pages here, The Land Taking. And the second book is called Founding the Kingdom. The next two books are separate books in themselves. The second one is Peder Victorious, and the last one is Their Father's God. Those two books do not appear to currently be in print in the United States. However, you can find copies. I found copies on thrift books. Libraries, there's a good chance a library would have them, and if not, they could almost certainly interlibrary loan them, because I'm sure that they have them in university libraries. So in Giants in the Earth, we meet Per Hansa. And Per Hansa is from the same little town in Norway that Rolvaag was from, that I can't pronounce apparently, and was also a fisherman. And he is coming to the Dakota Territory, what is now South Dakota, with a friend of his named Hans Olsa and his family, another couple named Tornsten, that's his name. I'm not good at these names. And Kirsty, and then two Norwegian young men who had been in the United States a little bit longer, so they're the ones who speak English. And Per Hansa is coming with his wife and 3 soon-to-be 4 children. He has 2 sons and then like a toddler daughter. And they settle in this area, kind of out in, not around anyone else. They do talk about when they have to go to town. It's like a 2-day trip, but in South Dakota, excuse me. And the first part of the book, The Land Taking, is very much them settling into this area and the trials that they have just getting started. And the second book, which is Founding the Kingdom, is where you get more of their society. There's more people coming in. They're starting to have more of an actual community as opposed to just 4 households together. And you see the evolution of that. That sounds all very quaint and idealistic, whatever, but it's not. Rolvaag does not hide away from the harder parts of things. Most notably, Per Hansen's wife, Berit. Berit married Per Hansen back in Norway against the wishes of her family because she was knocked up. And it was not her desire to come to the United States. And it certainly was not her desire to live out on the prairie, basically alone. And Berit also is suffering from mental illness, which is only made worse by the fact that she's living out on the prairie alone. Now, it's very well known that the suicide rate among women living on the northern prairies was very high. So she is not unique in this situation. And Rōlvaag does a really good job of getting into like what's going on in her mind, how she is seeing this whole world, what her struggles are. And he's writing from a time when the idea of mental illness was completely different. Like it was very much either she gets better or we have to send her away. Sort of dichotomies. It was very different than it is now. And Rolvaag really treats that well. And it's fascinating. It's also very stressful at times. Some pretty dark things do happen there. I should say now, I read this for both Misery May and Mental Health May, and it fits both. Per Hansen, on the other hand, is someone has an overabundance of self-confidence. And we see that play out probably more often than not in his favor, but not always. Our refrigerator door broke. My son broke the refrigerator door, the handle on it, so my husband's trying to fix it. Sorry, that's what that noise back there is. So Per Hansen is one of these, he's got a lot in he's got big butt in his britches, sort of thing. And you see both him, like you're reading this from the outside and you're like, come on, guy, come on. But then you see like the other people like idolize him because of the way he pumped himself up, which was very interesting. Now let me get to the Little House on the Prairie tie-in. This book was published before Little House, and the Little House books were ever published. This is fiction. Little House on the Prairie is fiction based on Laura Ingalls Wilder's experiences, but they're her experiences as an old woman looking back to when she was a child. So we're talking memory and through the eyes of a child. This is fiction, but it's through adult eyes. And there are things that happen in both the Little House books and this book. So that both makes it very good to compare the two. For example, on the banks of Plum Creek, they talk about the plague of locusts. This is actually a thing that happened for several years in a row in different parts of the Plain States. Basically, locusts came, and that happens here as well. I will say, the way Per Hansen deals with it, I don't quite buy, but whatever. Another thing, Laura Ingalls Wilder, one of her books is The Long Winter, which accounts the time, I can't remember the exact year, 1880, 1881, something like that, where the upper Plain States were hit with a horribly harsh winter. I can't read that book in the winter. I can only read it in August. Because it will put you into seasonal affective disorder if you don't already suffer from it. Like, you have to read that book when it's hot and sunny out. But that happens in this book as well. And the experience is very different. I mean, actually, the experience of that one is different, not in that completely different things happen to them, because they're both of those are in South Dakota. They're even near each other, I'm sure. I don't know where, other than in in the Dakota Territory. I'm not sure where the Dakota Territory they are, but I don't think they're that far from De Smet, which is where Laura Ingalls Wilder lived. Laura Ingalls at the time. So that is something that hit both people, these characters and Laura Ingalls Wilder. And because we're talking about a child and an adult, you get a different view on it. So I think if you have read the Little House on the Prairie books, this is a great one to read because you will see a different side of the things that happen in that book. Another point to contrast Little House on the Prairie and this one. Little House on the Prairie has come under fire, rightfully so, for its depictions of indigenous people. In fact, even in its time, it had to be edited a bit because it was really bad then. There are scenes with indigenous people in this book. Rōlvaag has a much different take on them. Now, there are characters in this book that have views towards indigenous people, very much like Caroline Ingalls. But your viewpoint character in this book is mostly Per Hansa, and Per Hansa has a completely different relationship with them. One that I thought was really ahead of Rolvaag's time when he wrote this. So that was very interesting to read. And I do think that's a good balance because you read the Little House stuff, and as a kid, I didn't get it. As an adult, I totally got it. And there were parts of the book when I was reading to my kids, I just didn't read because but here you get a very different take on it. So now my argument, we're gonna put Little House on the Prairie to the side now. My argument for this book is I think this book should be considered in the canon of great American classics. It's not a perfect book. I don't think books have to be a perfect book to be there, but I think that what I would consider a great American novel is a book that tells us something about America at some point in time. To Kill a Mockingbird is one of them. The Scarlet Letter, The Great Gatsby, Little Women, all those say something very specific about the American experience at this certain time. And this one does as well. It is the view of immigrants to the United States, Norwegian, Scandinavian immigrants to the United States, to the Upper Plain states. If you look at books that are analogous to this, you have Little House, those books, which again, those are through the eyes of a child, a woman relying a lot on memory, and a daughter who has to tell us all about libertarianism, but whatever. You also have, for example, Willa Cather. Willa Cather, I love Willa Cather, but she's not writing from the same viewpoint that he is. She doesn't, she does write books where they have immigrant characters, but she doesn't have the viewpoint that Rōlvaag has. Where I think this particular book gives us something that no other book really does. It is an interesting book. I should say interesting two books. There's also definitely a different feel between book one and book two. When I was buddy reading it with Christina, that's something that she pointed out. And I'm like, well, I think so because they're two different books. But this is a book that I think teenagers, high school students would enjoy, especially because I don't know if they still grow up on Little House on the Prairie. I know there's a new TV show coming out about it. So maybe we'll have a Little House revival. I don't know. I know Gen Xers, we grew up on Little House on the Prairie. There's nothing in this book that is out of reach, either content-wise or writing level-wise, that's out of reach of high school students. I would think actually this would be more accessible than some of the books I read in high school. We all know my story about Huck Finn. I didn't actually read Huck Finn in high school, but I remember reading it. I loved this book. I remember reading The Scarlet Letter in high school, and my classmates really struggled with it. We had a great teacher who really explained things very well to us, but that was something that high school students had a hard time kind of connecting to in a lot of ways. I don't see that with this book. And I'm not saying we shouldn't read The Scarlet Letter. I think that everyone should have to read The Scarlet Letter, and I'm sorry if you think that's punishment, but I love that book, so. But I think that high school students would really enjoy this book. It's accessible. Per Hansa is quite the character. And I think that it really gives you a window to America that you don't get from another book. When I was in high school, we read part of My Antonia by Willa Cather. I thought it was the whole thing until I read it again recently, and I'm like, we didn't read this. I think my take on Willa Cather is maybe that's not the best one. I think I know why they chose that one for Willa Cather. I like My Antonia, but I think if you aren't going to teach the whole thing, don't teach it. But this would be a good one to teach in its place and then teach another Willa Cather. And I think this is a book that should be more widely read and more widely recognized in the United States, because it is a window to a part of our history that we don't have another really clear window to. So there is my take on Giants on the Earth. I have not read Peder Victorious or Their Father's God yet, but I purchased them, so I will be reading them, and you will hear about them later. But have you read Giants in the Earth, and what did you think of it? Would you be willing to read Giants in the Earth? I will tell you, the copy that's in print now is not nearly as cool as this, but it is trade paperback, so it's easier to read. So let me know what you think. Like, subscribe, join my Discord, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.